Living in a remote farmhouse with my young daughter, Lily, our days were filled with a quiet routine, far from the bustling city life. Our home, nestled among sprawling fields and dense woods, offered a peaceful refuge, starkly contrasting the chaos of the outside world. One tranquil evening, as the stars began to sprinkle the night sky, Lily's frightened voice shattered the calm. "Daddy, I heard voices outside," she said, her eyes wide with fear. Initially, I dismissed it as a figment of her imagination, perhaps a dream spilling into her waking moments. Comforting her, I returned to my room. But as I settled back into bed, a chilling realization dawned on me. The faint, eerie whispers Lily had mentioned weren't just her imagination. They were real, unsettling murmurs that drifted through the night air, reaching my ears as I listened intently. My skepticism quickly turned to concern. Driven by a protective instinct, I retrieved my assault rifle, a precaution I'd hoped never to need. The night silence was heavy as I stepped outside, the rifle firm in my grip. My heart raced as I approached the chicken coop. Nearing the coop, I spotted a hooded figure lurking in the darkness. The sight of me, armed and vigilant, startled the intruder. They turned and fled into the darkness, leaving behind a trail of disturbed dust and a lingering sense of unease. But my fear for Lily's safety compelled me to act. I ventured out into the darkness, the rifle a steady weight in my hands, determined to protect my daughter from any threat that dared to invade our tranquil life. In the dead of night, my instincts as a father were put to the ultimate test. Clutching my rifle, I approached the chicken coop where I first encountered the hooded figure. The sight of me, armed and vigilant, sent them fleeing into the night, a brief but intense encounter that left my heart pounding in my chest. However, the night's terror was far from over. As I scanned the perimeter of our property, a disturbing sight unfolded before my eyes. Emerging slowly from the depths of our cornfield were three more figures, hooded and cloaked, moving with an eerie deliberation. Their presence on my land, so close to where my daughter slept, sent a wave of dread washing over me. Fearing for Lily's safety, I retreated to the farmhouse, my mind racing with concern. I locked the doors and windows, securing our home against the unknown threat that lurked outside. My hands shook as I dialed the police, reporting the unsettling events of the night. The officers arrived swiftly, their flashlights piercing the darkness as they thoroughly searched our property. They made a chilling discovery in the cornfield that sent shivers down my spine. Hidden among the stalks was a circle, meticulously drawn in red paint, surrounded by matches and gasoline. The eerie arrangement suggested a ritual, an ominous activity that had taken place right under our noses. The realization that such a sinister act had occurred so close to where we lived was horrifying. I struggled to comprehend the intentions of those who had invaded our peaceful existence. The police left with promises of further investigation, but I knew that the safety and sanctity of our home had been irrevocably shattered. That night changed everything. My determination to protect Lily and our home had never been stronger. The threat we faced was a stark awakening to the hidden dangers of our isolated lives. The emotional toll of the events was palpable. The innocence of Lily's childhood was marred by the realization that danger could lurk so close to our doorstep. I was just 17, a pizza delivery driver, when I faced a delivery that deeply shook me. The order was for an isolated farm, far from the bustle of the town. The place had an eerie feel, surrounded by an unsettling stillness as I drove up the long, winding driveway. Upon arrival, I was instructed to meet the customer at the barn, an unusual and frankly unsettling request. As I approached the barn, my heart pounded against my chest. The evening was falling, and the shadows stretched long and ominous across the ground, adding to the tense atmosphere. The customer, a middle-aged man, appeared from the shadows of the barn. His stern demeanor was intimidating, and a hardness in his eyes made me uneasy. Then, without any warning, he brandished a shotgun, pointing it directly at me. The cold metal of the gun glinted in the dimming light. I stood frozen for a moment, fear gripping me. The threat of danger felt all too real and imminent. My mind raced with thoughts of what to do, my survival instinct kicking in. In a split second, I turned on my heels and ran back to my vehicle, my heart racing even faster. Overwhelmed with fear, I dashed back to my car, my heart thumping loudly. The farm's eerie silence now felt even more oppressive. I didn't look back as I sped away, driving as fast as I could back to the safety of the pizza shop. My mind was reeling, struggling to process what had just happened. The chilling encounter with the shotgun-wielding man was something I never expected to face on a pizza delivery. Back at the shop, I shared my harrowing experience with my coworkers, but to my dismay, they met my account with disbelief. Their skepticism only deepened my sense of isolation, making me feel even more alone in my fear. It was as if the terror I'd felt was mine alone to bear. A year later, in a twist of fate, I was assigned to deliver to the same farm. The memory of that night flooded back, filling me with anxiety. Approaching the farm, the same uneasiness settled over me. The memories of the shotgun and the man's menacing stance were vivid. I braced myself for what might happen, the fear of last year's encounter still fresh and haunting. A year after the harrowing experience at the isolated farm, I found myself again navigating the winding driveway, each turn reviving the chilling memories of that night. My apprehension intensified as I approached the same barn where I had first encountered the man with the shotgun. This time, the man greeted me with an unsettling calmness, contrasting his previous demeanor. He apologized for the past incident, explaining his troubled state at the time, and offered a generous tip as a gesture of remorse. His insistence that I step inside momentarily to receive the tip unnerved me, but I reluctantly agreed, hoping to end the ordeal. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The door shut behind me, and I realized I had been locked in. Panic surged through me as the man's face twisted into a grimace, his intentions now horrifyingly clear. My heart pounded as I frantically searched for an escape route. In a desperate bid for freedom, I made a split-second decision. I lunged towards the window, throwing it open and jumping out, not caring about the height or the risk of injury. I landed hard on the ground, pain shooting through my body, but adrenaline propelled me forward. I sprinted back to my vehicle, not daring to look back, fearing being pursued, consuming my thoughts. I drove back to the pizza shop in a state of shock, the events of the night replaying over and over in my mind. Once there, I quit my job immediately, unable to face the prospect of another delivery. The experience had shattered any sense of normalcy and safety I once had in my work. Living on a secluded farm with my husband, our home was a serene haven, typically peaceful and undisturbed by the outside world. The farm, nestled in a remote area, had always been our place of solace. The tranquility of that night in September 2015 was just like any other. We had enjoyed a pleasant evening with friends, laughing and sharing stories. The warmth of their company lingered in the house even after they had left. The night was calm, with only the soft patter of rain against the windows. However, this post-dinner tranquility was soon disrupted by an unexpected disturbance. Ominous knocks at our door broke the stillness of the night. Accompanying these knocks was a voice, desperate and strained, pleading for help. The man on the other side of the door claimed he was lost with his wife, seeking refuge from the storm. But there was something unsettling about his plea. The voice carried a hint of deceit, a subtle undercurrent that didn't align with his words of distress. It set off alarm bells in my mind. My husband responded without opening the door. He engaged in a dialogue with the stranger, but with each exchange, the man's responses only deepened our suspicion. They lacked credibility and detail, and something just felt off. My husband and I were initially convinced the late-night disturbance was a prank by our neighbor, George. The idea seemed plausible, given his penchant for humor. Seeking confirmation, I quickly dialed George's number. The phone call, however, quickly dispelled our suspicions. George's confused and concerned voice on the other end made it clear he was not involved in this unsettling situation. With the prank theory dismissed, our concern escalated. The stranger's persistent knocking and his voice, now more pleading than ever, filled us with a growing sense of dread. Despite his claims of being lost and needing help, we couldn't shake off the uneasy feeling that something was amiss. With a heavy heart, we decided against opening the door, a decision that weighed on us given the stormy night. Recognizing the potential danger, I dialed 911. My voice trembled as I spoke to the dispatcher, explaining the situation. I could hear the apprehension in my words, reflecting the fear that gripped us both. We waited anxiously for help to arrive, hoping the police would provide some clarity and safety. As we huddled inside, the night grew more sinister. The sound of footsteps encircling our house hinted at the presence of not one, but multiple individuals. This realization sent a chill down my spine. Then came the most alarming sign yet, the distinct sound of someone tampering with one of our windows. The possibility of a break-in loomed large, amplifying our fear. In what felt like an answer to our prayers, our neighbor George arrived, shotgun in hand. His unexpected appearance offered a brief respite from the growing panic. George's readiness to defend us reassured us momentarily, easing our immediate fear. His presence, while comforting, couldn't entirely dispel the sense of danger that had enveloped our farmstead. The storm outside mirrored the turmoil within as we waited for the police. The sound of wind and rain beating against our farmhouse walls intensified the eerie atmosphere. Every rustle and every creak outside seemed amplified, heightening our awareness and fear. We sat in silence, listening intently, straining our ears for any hint of movement from the intruders who had encircled our home. Finally, the police arrived, their headlights cutting through the darkness and rain. They conducted a thorough investigation of our property, but by then, the intruders had vanished into the stormy night. The officers suggested we install security cameras, a precaution that had never seemed necessary in our peaceful rural life. The night's events had left us with no clear resolution. The identity and intentions of the intruders remained shrouded in mystery,